All right, everybody. I am back. Good to be back. Good to be back. I want to switch gears. And I guess really, I want to talk about the most interesting story in college football, but really, it's a conversation about their coach, who is all of a sudden the most interesting man in college football. And that's Lance Leipold, and his team is the Kansas Jayhawks. Kansas is, I don't even think it's a debate, the most interesting team in college football, bar none. Okay. This is a program that had not won more than 3 games in one season since 2009. Okay. Think about everything that's happened since then. They were coached by Turner Gill. They were coached by Charlie Weiss. They were coached by Les Miles, David Beatty. Have not won more than 3 games since 2009. They are currently sitting at 5-0. They are ranked in the top 25, and they are welcoming in TCU for college game day this weekend. So Kansas is this incredible story. And really what it has done, though, is shed a light on their coach, Lance Leipold. Everyone's asking, how did this happen? What is going on? Who is this coach? And unfortunately for Kansas, while the spotlight in a positive way is on the Kansas Jayhawks football team, the reality is Lance Leipold is now all of a sudden the hottest coaching candidate in all of college football. And so as we get set to really ramp up the coaching carousel stuff with 5 jobs currently open, what I want to do is talk a little bit about Lance Leipold, talk about the fact that realistically, he has real ties to the Nebraska program and the Wisconsin program, and you have to imagine is probably the top candidate at each. I want to tell you a little bit about him, and then I want to talk about his options. Does he go to Wisconsin? Does he go to Nebraska? Does he stay at Kansas? This is going to be a story that's fascinating here over the next couple months. So first of all, if you don't know his background, I mean, one of the more interesting, unique backgrounds in college football. If you're tired of every Nick Saban assistant coach just getting the head coaching job, this is the guy you want to root for, okay? This is a guy that started at the lowest levels of college football. And I say this all the time. I don't understand why more schools don't pursue coaches that have had success at lower levels, because you'll know how to build a program, you know how to sustain it, you have it with fewer resources. That's who this guy is. I talk about it in college basketball all the time. Chris Beard, who's now the head coach of Texas, he won at the JUCO level. He won at the D2 level. He won at the low major level. So it wasn't a surprise when he got to the Big 12 at Texas Tech and now at Texas that he's winning. He's won everywhere he's went. And this Lance Leipold guy is basically the same way, okay? So about probably 15 years or so ago, he takes over a D3 program called Wisconsin Whitewater. Played there as a player, kind of spent most of his early part of his career as an assistant coach, mostly at small schools, though not all, and we'll discuss that in a minute. Goes to Wisconsin Whitewater. They had never won a national championship before him. Now, they had been good, but had never won a championship before him, have not won one since. He was there for 8 years. How about this? He wins 6 D3 national championships as the head coach at Wisconsin Whitewater. Unbelievable. 6 national championships, 8 years, Wisconsin Whitewater. Unbelievable story. They haven't won a title since. How about this? His final 6 years, they lose a total of 3 games. A total of 3 games over 6 years. So this guy's killing it at the D3 level. Then a young AD at Buffalo, his name's Danny White. If it sounds familiar, he's currently the Tennessee head coach. Tries to figure out, okay, I'm at Buffalo, I'm in the MAC. How do I make a splash? Goes out and convinces this guy to come from the D3 level to D1 FBS, goes to Buffalo. Doesn't happen overnight, but by year 4, Buffalo is a 10-win team. Buffalo wins 10 games. Next season, they're good. COVID happens. I think they went about 6-1 during the COVID season. And then the break that I don't know if he was waiting for a break, but how about this? Kansas ends up hiring him under the most unique circumstances ever. That's how he ends up at Kansas. So 6 titles at Wisconsin Whitewater. By year 4 at Buffalo, he wins 10 games. And then the Kansas job kind of falls into his lap. Remember how this job opened. Les Miles, there's some weird investigation dating back to his LSU days, some stuff that he did behind the scenes that was highly inappropriate. He gets fired, and this is the incredible part about Lance Leipold and the incredible part about this Kansas season. He gets fired, Les Miles gets fired in mid to late April. Lance Leipold got hired April 30th of 2021. This to me is amazing, right? Because in this transfer portal where we live in this new world, this guy comes to Kansas last year after spring practice, right? So all these schools are firing their coaches now to get them in place by December. Kansas comes off a disappointing year. They have Les Miles. They go through the recruiting period. They stick with him through spring practice. He gets fired after spring practice. In the transfer portal world, most of the best players leave. Lance Leipold comes in April of 2021, the end of April. And guess what he does? By the end of year one, we know what they did. They went to Texas and beat Texas. And now 5-0 at Kansas. I think it's all but certain that at the very least they go to their first bowl game in basically forever. I think the bigger question at Kansas now is, can you keep them, right? Because as I said, when you have success at a school where there hasn't been a ton of success, people come calling. And I think what's interesting is this. I would imagine that he's going to get a call from pretty much everywhere that has an opening right now, but he has real ties to two of the schools that are currently open. So first off, for people who do not know, he was an assistant coach at Nebraska in the early 2000s. To me, that's important. He's been on that campus, and more importantly, he was on that campus when they were having a ton of success. 2001, they played for a national championship. Doesn't really work out against Miami. You can go Google, see what Jonathan Vilma did to Eric Crouch. I've talked to Eric Crouch about it, so we're cool. But the point I'm trying to make is, but he was there when they were operating at their highest level. He also was an assistant coach at Nebraska Omaha, a D2 school that has since canceled its football program. By the way, you know who the AD at Nebraska Omaha was when he was there? Trev Alberts, the current Nebraska AD. So you talk about ties. Coach there, worked under the AD as an assistant coach at Nebraska Omaha. Wisconsin. What are the ties to Wisconsin? Oh, I don't know. He's from Wisconsin. He grew up 40 minutes from Madison, and he built a program in Wisconsin into a D3 power. 6 national championships, 8 years. He knows the area. He knows the high schools. He knows the high school coaches. He knows how to recruit. He knows how to build a winning team in Wisconsin. And so you look at both of those schools, and I very much believe that he is probably the top candidate at both, or at the very least he should be. So in terms of the question of what he should do next, I'll just tell you my personal opinion. I will tell you, I've never really had a chance to spend time around him. Don't know much about him. I don't want to say I don't know much about him. Don't know personally what drives him, but a couple things stand out to me in terms of what I think could come down here over the next couple of months. First of all, it's worth noting he has ties to Wisconsin. He has ties to Nebraska. But I think it's worth noting, I don't think any of us are really sure that the Wisconsin job is actually going to really open. As I told you on Monday's show, I don't even think it's been discussed that the reason that they got rid of Paul Chryst now, Wisconsin this is because they really feel like Jim Leonhard is a rising star in the coaching ranks. As I told you on Monday, this was a guy that the Green Bay Packers tried to hire as their defensive coordinator. He is a Wisconsin alum. Many people believe he will be a head coach soon. And so the bottom line is I think Wisconsin is trying to put him in a place to see, is this guy head coach material? Is he worth somebody that's worth keeping around? Well, you look at the schedule that he inherits. First of all, they're a double-digit favorite against Northwestern this week, but they don't play a ranked team the rest of the way. And it's not impossible to think that he could go 5-2, 6-1, and the Wisconsin job never opens up. So that's worth considering there. Wisconsin's toughest game, they do have to play Minnesota, who isn't currently ranked, but we know that they're 4-1. Iowa isn't currently ranked, but they're good. Nebraska's not currently ranked, but they're good. So I don't even know if the Wisconsin job is going to open up, which is important. Now, Nebraska, I'm just telling you, I don't know what motivates this guy. I don't know if he wants to coach at the highest level, the most money, craziest fan base. But if I had the choice between Wisconsin, Nebraska, and Kansas, Nebraska would be my choice. And I think there's a couple things that are important here. One, and I can't reiterate it enough, he not only has ties to Nebraska, he coached there during really the last great glory era. And so I think that's important because there aren't very many of us left that won't even remember what it was like when Nebraska was awesome. But two, there's not many people that were on the ground that saw how the thing ran and saw how great that program can be. And so I think he knows the strengths of the program, the resources that are behind the program, as we talked about on Tuesday's show. There is no resource that a head coach can need that you won't get at Nebraska. Assistant coaching pool, facilities, NIL is going to be a factor there. And I still believe in my heart of hearts, you can build a playoff contender at Nebraska in the 12-team playoff era. Now, the 14 playoff era, I don't know. But in a 12-team playoff era, can Nebraska be the third best team in the Big Ten and go to a playoff? If Iowa can do it, If Wisconsin can do it, two programs that would have been to a 12-team playoff over the last couple of years, there's no reason you can't do it in Nebraska. And so to me, if it's a choice between the two, I'd take Nebraska. I would also say, though, I think it's very interesting to see what happens with Kansas. And a few things on the Kansas front. One, I don't understand, why hasn't Kansas put a contract in front of this guy like 2 weeks ago? Like there should be the John Calipari lifetime contract in front of this guy as of about September 15th when this team was 3-0. So I do wonder if somehow behind the scenes they're working towards something. It is interesting. Lance Leipold said this week, he said all the right things. I don't plan on going anywhere. Me and my wife are happy here. But one, Kansas, I don't care if you're in the Big 12. I don't care if you're not going to have the money of the Big 10 and the SEC. Find the money. Go between some couch cushions. Check the ashtray. Check the glove compartment in your car. Figure out a way to get this man paid. You do not want to lose this guy. And so to me, I'll be curious if Kansas puts a contract in front of him if they have not already. And then I'll take it even a step further. I do wonder when it comes to the Kansas element of things, if he feels like a debt of gratitude to Kansas because of the fact that they were the Power Five that took a chance on him, right? This is a guy that's in his mid to late 50s right now. I think he's 58 now, was in his mid to late 50s. Nobody took a chance on him. A lot of these jobs opened up. Nobody gave him a call. Nobody gave him the opportunity. And so I do wonder if he feels like he owes a debt to Kansas. This guy, again, took him until he's about 56, 57 to get to the Power Five level. I don't get a sense that he's in a rush to get anywhere. I mean, he was at Wisconsin Whitewater until he was probably in his late 40s, early 50s. And so to me, I wonder if he's loyal to Kansas. I wonder if he really wants to leave. But as the old saying goes, you got to strike while the iron's hot. And I can't even imagine what Wisconsin would offer if that job does really open up. I mean, remember, they just paid Paul Christ $11 million to go away over like a 2-month span. Nebraska, they paid an extra $7.5 million to get Scott Frost out 3 weeks earlier than they were planning. And so what's Lance Leipold's future? I don't know. If I was him and I wanted to leave, I would probably take Nebraska. But I also do wonder if he will be loyal to Kansas.